Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. And if you'd like to call me, it looks like we're having trouble getting Guineith this morning. But if you'd like to call me, I would be delighted to chat with you. Call in number 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Well, I'd like to tell you a story about something that's happened to me that has, looks like we have Guineith. Let's see. Okay. Guineith, welcome.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Good, good. Are you on your landline or another line?
I'm on my landline. GCN's had some problems trying to call me, so I'm actually calling in today.
Well, let's do.
But we're going to try reconnecting during the ads.
Well, I'll tell you what. It costs so much for you to call in. Let's do this. Let's have GCN continue to try to call you, and I've got a couple of things I can go over. It'll come up as a beep
on my line when they try to call me, and then I'll be able to hang up. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, can you do that? Okay, so we're going to try to do that. In the meantime, Guineith, what's new in your world? I've gotten your emails.
Yeah, it's, oh my gosh, this families department, when they get their hooks into you, when they get, when they decide that they want to hassle you, they don't leave,
We just lost Guineith. Jason, let me know when she comes back. Let me tell you a story, class.
Hello again.
Oh, okay, great. I'm so glad you're back. That sounds crystal clear.
Yep, no, that's
all right.
And the school system they're all tied in together. I got a message today from a friend to call up the high school that my son used to attend. Okay. Now, what happened last year, or actually the end of 2017, was that high school or that college was attempting to entrap myself and my son into involvement with the families department. Okay, that's child protection. They were accusing me falsely of starving my children. And you can see photos of me on the internet. We're not fat people. We're naturally not fat people. You can, if anyone wants me to provide photos of, cousins and that sort of thing, none of us are fat. And, many of us are quite wealthy people, because we tend to be brainy sorts and we tend to figure out how to make a living in this world. But, it's an epigenetic thing that we're British blue bloods and they're not really fat people. And, because of that, I said, listen, you're trying to entrap me. I want you to take my son off the roll of the school. He won't be going to the school anymore. And I put that in writing and sent the note physically to the school, okay? And guess what? They didn't take his name off the roll. And the new year comes around, and I think I also told them by telephone as well. They said, oh, what's going to be happening with him? And I said, oh, he's not going to the school. You know, why should I put up with that? That's really just abusive behavior. That's the sort of behavior that if you imagined that, like, the state was a spouse and they were an abusive spouse, that's the sort of thing an abusive spouse would do. Okay? That it's just not acceptable. And what happened was we kept Theo at home last year because of that. And, you know, he did lessons at various times at home. And but when they get their hooks into you, this education department school system, they don't let go. And this school principal, she was talking to me, and I should have just not answered her call. I should have just blockaded her and said, listen, I'm not talking to you. You know, you can go to hell. I'm very sorry. I shouldn't say that on the air. But I mean, that's where she's going to end up if she goes in that direction. She's going on the left-hand path. It leads down to the hot barbecue, Vincent. That is what I mean.
Guineith, it sounds to me like you're frosted because they're telling you what you will do with your children. They're telling you that well, it's more than that. You will be vaccinated, at least in the United States. And they don't say... Well,
that's what they want to do here.
Right. But in the United States, they do not say, would you like to be vaccinated? It's optional. Now, if you have a religious exemption or it's against your belief system, we won't do it. But you just have to let us know. They don't do that. They tell you, you will be vaccinated or your child will not be allowed to be in school. Now, most people cave in and they say, oh, okay, I guess that's the way it is. So we'll just, inoculate our son or our daughter or our children with whatever is in that injection, which we don't even know. Regardless of what the label on the injection says, we really don't know what's in that injection. And that's risky. That's really risky. As a matter of fact, there's a belief that people who are of my generation, the baby boomers in the United States who are vaccinated in the school system, line up, bang, bang, bang. They had this gun and they would shoot you in your arm with this vaccine. It was an assembly line of injections. It is believed that series of injections that was done by the school system, at the school system, by the government corporation, caused respiratory diseases. That's what's believed. And I'm not saying that I don't disagree. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people who are really sick. So who are these people in the school system? And by the way, I have worked for school systems. 4 county school districts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I can't get a single person, not one, whether retired or not, to come on the air and talk about what has happened in education. Not one. Just like the cops won't come on the air with me. People who are associated with government corporations will not come on the air with me. Why?
You know why? Because it's Nazi concentration camp level stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They say, we want to keep a track of your son. Well, I say, go and dig a hole jump in it and fill in the dirt over the top of yourself. And keep digging until it gets really, really hot.
Sounds
That's
like you're
what I
frosted.
say.
Yeah.
I'm really frosted. These people are completely evil. They really, really are. And, you know, it's, oh my gosh, this school, they have a policy of teaching the children, I'm talking about 13, 14, and 15-year-old children, you know, and upwards, that it's okay to be gay. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is pedophilia in a country where the age of consent for buggery and homosexual acts is 18. And my son has had friends who have decided that they are lesbian and bisexual and, you know, actually transgender, and that have gone through that school system and come out the other side and being born biologically male, and then have decided by the time they've gone through their school system to go out and get their equipment cut off and grow their hair long. And that particular individual that I'm not going to name, okay, but anyone who wants me to, I can tell them who it is privately, not publicly, went over to his neighbour's house at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I know the neighbour, shouted to high heaven that he was going to kill the woman next door, and threw rocks and bricks and whatever through her windows at 3 a.m., and when she called 000, the police dispatcher told her that there were no officers available to present for that little emergency because they were all asleep.
Wow. I don't know
I can just hear
if that happened.
Dropping on the ground.
If that happened to
that
me,
was a child that came through that school system, and that's what happened to him by the end of it. That school system is no good, and I am not subjecting my child to it.
Gwyneth, if that happened to me, if someone threatened to kill me and was throwing rocks and projectiles through my windows, I would not be calling the police for a while. Then I would be calling the police and saying, listen, you guys have a coroner? You might want to bring him over. We'll be right back. Busted in Australia, Guineith Isaacs. Gwyneth, what's next?
Well, you know something, I would like to continue keel-hauling this school principal for a bit more.
Oh, sure.
Her name is called, I did send it to you in the email. It's something like Leachmere, Rachel Leachmere, or something like that. Did I get that right?
It's Ms. It looks like a chubby, looks like a kind of, she's kind of barrel-shaped with a head. Looks like, I can't really.
That's her.
Yeah. Rachel Leach, Lechmer, Lechmere, Lechmer.
Lechmer, yeah. And, you know, you can just imagine it. It's like the name that would come out of a children's cartoon where you wanted to have a principal who was a really, really bad sort. It would be like, yes, Miss Lechmere, you know. Oh, my gosh. But this woman is the product of the broken educational system. You can see it looking at her face. And I know that she's going to hate me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's true. I've been to Melbourne University, which is where most of the trainee teachers are trained. This woman's probably around about my age. And one of my children, not Connor, one of the children said this. He said, listen, These teachers, I don't know if she's married. I don't know if she's got a relationship happening in her life at the moment. And this is not my comment. This came out of the mouth of a child. Okay? They said, this is like somebody who has never had an intimate relationship. But that is not what, that's not the word he used. And I turned to him and I said, wow, out of the mouth of babes, with this child saying this. And, this child's a teenage child, so, but that, I'm sure that it must be true. I don't know if this woman's ever known anybody or not. I hope that she finds love and happiness in her life. But what I'm saying is, it's like a cookie cutter. It goes boom, 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 down the production line like that vaccine tube, okay? And it pushes out these, entitled, they think that they're entitled to tell us what to do, okay? They are generally either unhappily in relationships or they've never had a relationship because they've never been able to attract anyone. They often don't have children, okay? These are big generalizations. But believe me, like I said, I came from the university where all these trainee teachers got pushed through, and now they're all about my age. And I knew them back in the day when they were at college. We were all at college together. And now I can see that cohort coming through. Okay, and this is what they're like. They have the lefty social justice warrior education, and I sat in on some of those classes, of gender politics and whatever it was. I disagreed with them, but I was probably one of the only people there that did. And because they have this whacked out idea of social justice warrior, radical militant feminism and all the rest of it, they've never been able to have a happy relationship. And mostly they don't have children of their own. Mostly they become school teachers, and mostly they become social workers, and mostly they become government workers, and then proceed to teach the rest of us how we ought to do it. And that's how it is. I've been dealing with these people for a long, long time. These people, through child protection, they first had to deal with me when I was pregnant with my first son. I was 3 months pregnant. And they came into my life and they made our lives so much hell that my baby was born with low birth weight.
Gwen, hold that thought. We can continue with your discussion when we come back after these announcements. Gwyneth, I got to tell you that I've been getting some phone calls from our instructors, and we've been talking off air, and it seems that you and I and Joey and others are not alone in trying to work things out with people who just don't get it. They don't understand. They are ignorant of so many things. It's frustrating dealing with people who want to fleece us, who want to insert themselves in our lives, who have a job of picking products for our company to sell, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't do a good job, and then they sell products that are defective or poorly made, and then they won't stand behind the products. Joey's finding it, I'm finding it, and you're finding it with the school system.
Yeah, this educational system, they're selling a product that doesn't work, okay? And a couple of years back, I stood back, a year or so back or whatever, I stood back and I said, this product doesn't work and I'm not buying it anymore. By the way, the Department of Education here in this state is actually a corporation, okay, under Australian corporate law. And that means I do not have to consent to contract with them. And I want to say very slowly, very loudly, and very clearly, I do not consent to contract with Wedderburn College and Victorian Department of Families. You are both private corporations. Your product doesn't work, and I'm not buying it. Do you know what the incarceration rate is, Vincent, for, children who are former state wards?
Please
I have no
tell us.
idea, but
Tell us.
It's astronomical. The rate of drug addiction for former state wards is astronomical. This is former foster children. I do know that globally, in everywhere where this system puts in its foul teeth, that around about 1/3 of foster children are sexually abused before the age of 18. The state's the worst parent on earth. Why would anybody ever put their children for any length of time into the care of the state? They don't know what they're doing, and they wreak a trail of destruction as far as the eye can see. And I refuse to consent to contract with them anymore. They are not good parents. They are not good educators, and I'm not buying it anymore. I'm not giving in to them. And if they persist in their path, I'm going to sue them for unspecified damages for the pain and suffering that they have over the last 18 years caused my family and I. They could have killed my baby. He was born at 38 weeks by cesarean section. He was born 4 pounds and 15 ounces and 12 inches from his toes to the crown of his head. That's a tiny baby. That's like a preemie-sized baby at 38 weeks. He spent the first 2 weeks of his life in the special care nursery. And, I had the job, as being the mum, of cup feeding him every single day. I went in there, and every day I was absolutely terrified that I would get to the hospital and find that my baby wasn't there. Can you imagine what that feels like? And I remember being in the car with my husband and saying, darling, can you please hurry? We have to get to the hospital. I don't want to be late. I don't want to, I want to see my baby. And we had to have about a half-hour car ride or 20 minutes or whatever, depending on the traffic, from where we lived to the hospital. And I was just so delighted. And, I would come down the hall and I would hear him crying as I came I remember this, as I came down the hallway, I would hear my own baby crying, and I knew it was him. And I would run down the hall and I would tap on the glass of the special care nursery, and they'd open the door, and I'd say, my darling, my little darling, and I'd pick him up, and he'd instantly stop crying. He just wanted to be with his mum. I remember that. And I'm so grateful that I got a chance to be his mum. But, it was only by fighting them every ounce of the way. And I thought that I was over-fighting them. And you know what it is? I said to the school principal, listen, he's going to be 16 in 5 weeks. And she says, yes, we know. No, you know what it is? If they get their claws in before the age of 16, they can keep their claws in until they're 18. And they can screw their life up for 2 years. And I'm not having it. I'm absolutely not having it. You are not going to have my children. You're going to get sued to kingdom come if you persist. Victorian Department of Education, Victorian Department of Family Services, you are not doing this. I have had enough.
You know, Guineith, there's a saying, Gerald Celente says this, and he says it's a saying that they use in Brooklyn, New York, and that is when someone loses everything and they have nothing left to lose, they lose it.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying is if they back you into a corner, it won't be pretty.
I'll come out swinging.
Absolutely. That's what I would do.
Lawfully and legally.
Absolutely.
But I will come out swinging. They are not doing this to me.
Mark in Illinois, you're on with Guineith Isaacs in Australia. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. I don't know if it's morning where Gwyneth's at, but it's probably night, huh?
Yeah.
Is it dark there in Australia? Or afternoon?
It's gone 2:30.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about something else. I didn't know. I heard what you were talking about, and about what people do to other people as far as persecution goes and stuff like that. I've had a lot of that stuff in my life. I've told Vincent about some of that stuff on the air. But I was going to ask you about the Welsh language, the Welsh being the ancient Hebrew, the Cymry. Are you familiar with that?
I don't speak Welsh. I speak Scottish Gaelic.
Yeah.
I love the
I know
Welsh
you said
language.
that. Yeah.
I
know
love
if you
the
were
Welsh
familiar
language, and I don't know any Hebrew.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
well, I'm not.
So I can't comment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not Jewish myself. I'm Hebrew, but and I've studied the tribes of Israel in their dispersion when they crossed the Caucasus Mountains and they came down into Crimea and they settled in that area, Ukraine. That's why I think the Russians are trying to get a hold of that area, because it's a pass. And it's one way of getting into the Middle East. If you pass through that pass, you can get into the Middle East, into the back door of the Middle East. It's probably made, most especially with an invasion, if you were thinking of that.
Yeah. What I know is that the Scottish people, they come from Kazakhstan in ancient times, and they are what the Revised Standard Version Bible calls them the Scythians. I think other Bible translations call them that as well. I forget the word the King James Version calls them, but it basically it means Scotians. It means the children of Scota, and Scota apparently, one ancient Celtic myth says that Scota was actually an Egyptian princess. Okay, so how that happened, I'm not quite sure. But
are you familiar?
The reason why that they're called Gaelic people is because they had a wise man, a druid, who was their mentor, who was leading them for quite some time, and he was the one who first established their system of writing, and his name was called Gael, and so they called the language Gaelic after him, but they had a spoken language, but he was the one who devised the Oyam script. That's the Ogham alphabet, and first gave them a system of writing. And that actually makes a lot of sense, because the people of Kazakhstan, they would have been genetically very, very similar to the Mongol people. And if you look at the ancient Celtic traditions, they are very, very similar to the Central Asian Mongol-type people. They lived in roundhouses, which were basically built the same as a yurt, except that the walls, instead of being made of, poles and stretched skins, they set up permanent settlements by making these yurts out of stone walls instead of, skins. That's what they did. That's where the Welsh and the Irish and the Scottish Gaelic and the Cornish people come from. Okay? The English have a different ancestry. They come from the Saxons. Okay? And the Picts have a different ancestry again. Those are the Scottish lowlanders. They have a different ancestry. Okay? They were the original indigenous people of Britain. They were the original British cavemen. And if you look at somebody with almost pure Pictish ancestry, then actually they tend to resemble...
Right, hold that thought. We're going right into a break. You can tell us who they resemble when we come back. Guineith is with us. She's live in Australia. Guineith, let's back up just a little bit. The last thing you said was they resemble. Who are they and who do they resemble?
Okay, the Pictish people, this is the, today we would say that they were the Northern English and the Border Scots and the Lowland Scots. Okay, so not the Scottish Highlanders. And also the people of Yorkshire. So it's the same genetic among the two peoples. And my ancestors come from that region, and we have family members who have this genotype and this phenotype. That means this gene and this gene expression. Okay, they actually look like North American Indian tribes. They look like the Sami tribes of Russia, and they look like the Lap people of, Northern Europe. And it's really amazing because you would not think that the English people could possibly be related to the North American Indians. That's not a connection you would immediately make. If you look at somebody who comes from that area, they tend to have prominent brow ridges. They tend to have wide noses and wide mouths and very deep-set eyes, and many of them have black or dark brown hair and also, brown eyes, very, very brown eyes. The only thing is that similar to the Lap people and similar to the Sami tribe of Russia and Norway, they tend to have lighter skin. Okay? But if you look at their culture, the culture that they had, it was actually very, very similar to the North American Indians. So at some time, prior to the Gaels getting there, prior to the Welsh getting there, and prior to the Scottish Highlanders emigrating from Ireland, which happened comparatively recently, it only happened probably about 1,400 years ago, that the Scottish Highlanders came across from Ireland. But the Welsh have been there for much longer. The Welsh have been there for about 3,000 years. But prior to that, there were people in Britain, and these were the people who were in Britain, and they were driven out of every other part of Britain except for the area where they are now, which is, like I say, northern England and the southern part of Scotland. And my particular ancestors come from that region, and today my family owns land in that area, and nobody else has ever owned that land. It is their estate. They are the clan chiefs of the tribe, and that land has only ever been the property of that clan and their clan chiefs. There's never been anybody else own that land. And there's actually not many parts of the world where you could say that. And there's a mountain on that land, not a very big mountain. Most of the land is quite flat. But there's a mountain on that land, and there's caves in that mountain. And there's cave paintings in that cave that are truly ancient and that were drawn by my ancestors thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And when my grandmother was a little girl, that was her grandfather's estate. Her grandfather was the clan chief. And she remembered going up and playing on this mountain and playing in the caves and seeing these cave paintings. And that is something quite remarkable, Vincent. Mm-hmm. And that's, what we're saying. We've got to stay connected with the land. And these people, they've written a book called The Calhoun Reader. They want to bust up our families. They want to remove all of our connection with land and kin and everything that is traditional and dearly valuable to us. And I think
well, we can continue right after the top of the hour news and commercial announcements. They want to steal our property. We'll be right back. Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us, live in Australia. Guineith, what else is on your mind?
Okay. Now, what I was going to talk about, which also ties in with what we were talking about in the previous hour, is this transgender weirdness that has been going on. Okay, you are getting, especially women who decide that they want to be men. Okay. Now, before anybody gets upset and thinks that I'm going to bash these particular human beings, I want to say I actually get it. Okay. Anyone who's been following my work lately knows that when hundreds of years ago, when I was alive on the earth before, that I was George Wilson, and that George Wilson was the matelot of Bartholomew Roberts, and that George Wilson was actually female, wearing male clothes and a codpiece. But the reason why George Wilson did that was not because he got up one morning and decided that that was going to be a good idea. From what I've been seeing with my spiritual work, that, whatever, father was actually dressing her as a boy from when she was a child, for the simple fact that he was a surgeon. He couldn't watch her every minute of the day. And they lived in an area which was quite close to the docks and was near the river. And so when you got people from a lower class background, or, lower middle class, which would have been, a barber surgeon would have been at the top of the lower class, okay, or the bottom of the middle class. But when you got these people, they lived in an area which was near the docks in Liverpool, and I've been able to locate the house site. I saw the house in a dream. I went on some ancient maps of Liverpool, and which was the city that he was from, and I actually looked for a building block of that particular shape that I'd seen in the dream, and there was only one building and one lot of land in the city at that time that was of that size and that shape, and of what I'd seen in my dream. I had a past life experience in a dream where I was standing outside my childhood home, and I saw the house. It was 2 stories high. It had a lot of bluestone in it. It was actually quite a sturdy building. But by the time the Victorian era had come, it had been demolished. And it was right next to the Mersey River. I think I was mentioning this last week. And I think that I'm not alone in this knowledge, because somebody at some stage decided that they were going to rename the Mersey Road, and they named part of it one name, and then the half-mile of road that happens to be directly in front of this house block, they named it Shalona Street. And Shalona Ogle, that's Chaloner, Shalona Street. Shalona Ogle was the man who killed Bartholomew Roberts. So it would be like if you really, really hated Lincoln and you really, really wanted to do a great big fat dump all over the memory of Lincoln, what you would do is you would find maybe where Lincoln was born or where Lincoln's wife was born, and name the road outside their house Wilkes-Booth Street. That is the level of offensiveness that we are talking about here. And I believe that the municipality, that the Liverpool Corporation was being deliberately offensive, that they knew that this was the piece of land that George Wilson grew up on. And the only reason that I know it is because I had this dream. Well, I was George Wilson again, and I was there, and I was standing in front of my childhood home, and I saw it, and it was a fairly sturdy building. But what you've got to realize, it was near the docks. It was in a bad area. And people in that age, in that time, would dress their little girls as little boys for their own safety and for their own protection if they came from a poor area. Because if you sent your little girl out to play in a dress with her pretty curly curls, she might not come back, and you might never ever see her again. You know, child abduction. I know that we all like to think that it's a 20th and 21st century phenomenon, but it's not necessarily so. It's been going on for hundreds of years. But the only difference is now, before it used to be a lower class problem. Now it's everywhere. So I believe that George Wilson was dressed as a child, as a boy, although she was a girl, by her father from when she was really, really little, and that she grew up being treated like a boy, got trained as a surgeon, and that when she presented at the docks at the age of 17 and said, "I'm George Wilson, I want to sign up for the Navy," they all just assumed that it was the boy. They all knew that the father had died because Liverpool at that time was not a big place, and so that's why he or she or whatever was accepted onto the ship fairly in short order, because they needed surgeons, and they probably knew that Mr. Wilson Sr. was a pretty good surgeon, and that he would have trained me well, and he did train me pretty well, although he was a barber surgeon and not a university sort, and he taught me how to read and how to write. But what I'm saying is, there was a reason why, in that era, that I was transvestite. I was transvestite for my own survival, not because of gender weirdness. What's happening now with women deciding that they want to be men, why? Why would you do that? You know, you've got to be happy and accept the person that God has made you to be. Because I'll tell you what is happening with these women who are going and deciding that they want to be men, thinking that that will make them happy. They start hormone therapies, they have hormone treatments, okay? And what it does is it deepens their voice, it makes their muscles grow, it makes them grow full-on beards. It makes them grow more full, lush beards than your average pussy hat-wearing feminist male. and I think I sent you some photos, but you can look it up. Anyone can look it up online. These women, when they have transitioned to being men, they full on look like men. You can't easily tell when they've got their clothes on if they are male or if they are something else. And what they're saying is that when they've gone through this transition, suddenly their feminist friends don't want to be their friends anymore because they say, you're too male. You know, and they get it where, you know, that they've always felt a bit butch and they transition because they decide they want to be a man, and then their lesbian partner decides that now they're too masculine and break it off with them and don't want to be with them anymore because they're too much like a man. You know, words fail me. You know, what did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen? If you do this sort of gender transition, it's going to make you more masculine, and we thought that's what you wanted anyway. Does that make sense? That doesn't make sense today. You know I often say that, but this is something that really doesn't make sense. Isn't that right, Vincent?
Well, I got to tell you, I was buying some parts for the farm, and the cashier, I literally, and I'm not exaggerating, I didn't know if I was talking with a young man or a young woman. I literally had no idea. And I took a guess because the name appeared to be a male name, but this person could easily be an overweight guy or an overweight gal. Whatever it was, it wasn't something of beauty, that's for sure. It was confusing to me. And what I'm seeing, I'm seeing more and more of these examples in retail. Is it that we can't find people who would be pleasant to work with at the cashier's level? Can't we find anybody? I mean, I don't want to go, literally, I do not want to go back to that store because of the cashier. I really don't. And it's not just me. I have these discussions. I get a number of calls from our instructors. I apologize. I'm not able to take all the calls that we get here at the farm. Sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm not here. So I'm not here. I can't take the calls. But I just want to say that what we're talking about, it's not just happening with me in Missouri. It's not just happening with Guineith in Australia. It's happening in other states across the United States as well. This weirdness is a disease that's spreading very quickly, and I don't like it. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us. Guineith, would you like to tell us about your newsletter?
Yes, I've started a weekly newsletter, okay? And it's called the Gentleman of Fortune's Weekly News. And what it is, one of my favorite authors, okay, has been a fellow by the name of Daniel Defoe. He's a very, very famous author, actually. He lived about 300 years ago. Actually contemporary with George Wilson and Bartholomew Roberts. And he actually, he used the nom de plume. He wrote one of the main sources that we have for the life of Bartholomew Roberts and his crew, which is a general history of the pirates. Okay, and you can buy that on Amazon.com. I've got an ebook version of it. But, you know, he was actually a journalist, and he would produce a weekly newsletter where he would basically detail what was going on in the British criminal world. And he would also write books about the history of various criminals and criminal organizations. So he wrote a general history of the pirates, and he also wrote an extended second edition of that book, which has a longer name, which I can't quite remember. But he wrote about highwaymen, and he wrote about various different, really interesting people that were in his universe at that time. And he also, I think, did go into the history of it a little bit, of of where these groups had come from and who they were and the world that they lived in. Okay? And I thought that was just a really, really interesting mode of doing a newsletter, and that there was nobody really out there doing that sort of work at the time. At this time, there's nobody there doing that sort of work. So each week I go in and I have a section in the newsletter, which is a history of crime. And last week we did Captain William Bligh. Now, we might not think of Captain Bligh as being a criminal, but he absolutely was. He was, on his voyage on the Bounty, the reason why they had a Bounty mutiny was because he was feeding the ship's drinking water to 1,000 breadfruit plants. And so he was making his crew almost die of thirst for the sake of getting these little trees across the South Pacific. And Vincent, I don't know about you, but that's criminal activity in my books.
Mm-hmm.
And he was having people in his crew dying. He was flogging people for, he had a stash of coconuts in his captain's cabin, and he accused various members of his crew of stealing his coconuts. And he flogged crew members for stealing his coconuts. And probably in reality, nobody stole his coconuts. That's crazy level, insane behaviour. That's assault and battery is what that is. And he got made the governor of Sydney town. And the thing is, he just kept getting promoted. This is what I don't get. Why do these people keep getting promoted? Can you explain that to me, Vincent?
Well, I've had a saying for many, many decades about supervisors whom I've had, and that saying goes like this: How did that guy get so far, on so little, make so much, and stay so long?
Yeah. How can incompetence manage to rise so high in the ranks?
That's what I'm talking about. We'll be right back. Guineith, I've been thinking for quite a while about why are people so frustrated? Why are people on edge? And we're talking about that today. During the first hour, you talked about the corrupt school system in your neck of the woods in Australia. But we've also talked about the police oppression. These guys sniping with their radar guns, looking for taillights that are out, riding around with license plate scanners, looking for problems, lying to us, misrepresenting who they are and what they're doing. Then we have these corporations that make crappy products and services. We can talk about lousy appliances that don't last very long. We can talk about dishwashers, washing machines, refrigerators, freezers. We can talk about home appliances that heck, we used to think would last for 40 years. Now people want to get rid of them after 5 or 6 years because they can't afford to have the service guy keep coming out again and again after that 1-year warranty expires. And then I believe that there are people who are in corporations who are in the product selection area. So let's say we have a store, and the store decides which products they're going to sell. So they have people in charge of evaluating the products, looking at them, the price points, the quality, the availability of parts, the warranty, how long the manufacturer's been in business, their reputation, all those things. But those people, I think, are failing us in great ways because they are selecting products for us to buy from the stores because we think that the stores are the same store that they used to be, but they're not. They've changed their business model to where forget about the customer, just get the money. And, we don't need to worry about the customer being satisfied anymore. We just say, well, it's warranted for 1 year, and what do you expect? The warranty's over. Go buy another one. No, that's unacceptable. I was on the phone yesterday, and and after about 30 minutes on the phone, I called corporate headquarters because I was really dissatisfied with the product that I bought. And I was on the phone with the guy who's in charge of selecting that product for sale. And I'll tell you what it is. It's a frost-free hydrant. And one of these things is, it's a faucet that's outside. And so what you do is you get a backhoe and you trench in the line for this thing. Then you bury it 3 feet deep, and it has a handle above the ground. And the idea is it won't freeze in cold weather. Great idea. Well, anybody that buys one of these things is thinking, gosh, I've got thousands of dollars invested in installing this thing. If you did what we did and you put in a couple 100 feet of pipe and you put a couple of these hydrants in, actually 3 of them, and they start leaking, it's a huge problem because now you've got to dig down 3 feet to fix it. So I was talking to this guy and he said, well, maybe it only has a 1-year warranty. He couldn't even figure out which one I bought. Well, what happened was that the company that manufactured them, a U.S. manufacturer, decided that they needed some cheap ones. And they started importing them from China. And they're junk. Okay? Well, they say that on their website, it says made in USA. Well, I talked to them this morning. I talked to the factory. And they said, well, actually, that particular model is made from imported parts. I said, China, they wouldn't tell me.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah, so on the website it says, proudly made in USA. So after a half hour of talking with the company that sold me, this farmer supply company where I bought it, after a half hour of talking with the guy who was in the department to select the products that they're going to carry for resale, he said, you've been yelling at me for half an hour. Actually, well, I hadn't even started telling this guy what I thought. But, I did go on to a monologue or a semi-monologue about it. I was never yelling at him, but he kind of thought that I was pretty frosted. And what I was trying to convey to him is that you can't sell a product and say, well, it may have a 1-year warranty when the customer expects it to be a durable product. And I told him, I don't care about the warranty. I expected this to be a durable product. And I mentioned to him, I said, do you know what indemnification means? He didn't know what that meant. And I said, well, let me give you an example. So you slide on some ice, you bang into another vehicle, you do $2,000 worth of damage to your vehicle. You're insured, but your deductible is $500. So you're expecting to be compensated for $1,500. The damage less your deductible, be put back in the original position. So I explained to this guy that he said, what do you want? And I said, actually, I thought yesterday you would have told me, Mr. Finelli, I'm so sorry that you're having this problem. I'm so sorry that you can't water your cows. I'm so sorry. Would it be okay if we gave you 2 new ones? And then his response to me was, so you want free stuff?
Oh, my gosh.
I couldn't believe it. So I told him yesterday.
He's accusing you of trying to get free stuff. when the stuff that he's sold you is cheap Chinese junk.
Right.
Where they skim 10% off the thickness of the wall of the fire hydrant thing, you know, and they think that you're not going to notice that 10% means that it can't hold the water pressure, and it's going to burst on a high pressure line.
Well, this thing
That's
is cheesy.
That's some of it, right?
Well, it's substandard. What they did was they used everything on this thing is substandard, and you can't even buy parts for it. You can't go to the store where you bought it. You can't go to the farm supply. They don't have parts. They don't even know what the model number is because it doesn't have a model number, and it doesn't have a casting brand name in it, you know, with the manufacturer because they didn't make it. It came from China. Well, I talked to this customer service rep from the factory. She was kind of curt. She was kind of put off. I said, so how long is this thing supposed to last? And she said, 10 years. And I said, well, it didn't last that long. It's leaking, and after a few years. And she said, well, you know, she could sell me the parts. And I said, so let me see if I've got this right. You're telling me that it should last 10 years. It lasts a few years. It's leaking, and I've got this problem, and you want to sell me the parts. You didn't say, would it be okay if I sent you the parts? No. And I'm sorry you had the problem. What I'm finding out is that companies in the United States are selling stuff, substandard stuff. Now, this can be Sears. This can be a lot of companies because they're looking at selling you another one. But they don't realize that people that are of my generation don't like this. We think that if we're going to buy a DVD player, that it's going to last more than the 90-day warranty. We think that if we buy a dishwasher, it's going to last longer than a year. And I remember telling the store manager at Sears, Roebuck and Company many years ago that if I bought a television, which I have not done, but if I did, and I bought a television and it lasted 13 months and it had a 1-year warranty, I'd be bringing that back. And if he said to me, hey, it's got a 1-year warranty and it's out of warranty, we'll sell you a new one, I'd be raising my voice. I would be causing a lot of attention. They'd probably have to get the police to remove me from the store as I taught a class on why you shouldn't buy things from Sears. See, we've gotten to the point where companies are fleecing their customers. So what do we do about this? Well, we talk about this in your newsletter. We talk about this on the radio, and we post articles. So what I did, I was so annoyed with this guy that I talked to, and the company's called MFA. It's Missouri Farmers Association. It's a cooperative. And he said something about, you know, if he has a 2007 Jeep, how long would I expect them to have parts available from the factory for this Jeep? And I said, 10 years at least. He thought that was unacceptable. He didn't think that the company that manufactured his Jeep should have parts for 10 years for it. The guy's lost his mind. You know, when you buy a car, you expect the parts to be available from the manufacturer for a long time. And he's thinking, and like this hydrant, did I ever expect that I would have to get a backhoe and dig this thing out again? Absolutely not. You know, when you get a well, you have somebody dig your well and they bring in equipment, you don't think this is going to have a 1-year warranty. You think this is going to last a lifetime, unless the water runs out in your aquifer, right? When you buy a car, you expect it, if it has a 12-month, 12,000-mile warranty, you expect it to last more than 1 year. I mean, really, we now have people who have no idea what's going on in positions where they are selecting products for us. These people should all be fired. I'm frosted.
The thing is, they have let the accounting department get a hold of the rest of the business and tell everybody else what to do. And any time that you get the quartermaster running the show, things are going to go badly, Vincent. You know why? Because the quartermaster is a bean counter. He is. He counts beans. That's what he does.
Yep.
And if you're going to have somebody running the show, they have to take more into account than just how many beans there are in the barrel. They have to take into account human nature. And I'm not talking about the psychological rubbish that's taught in the universities in sociology departments, okay? I'm talking about the nuts and bolts of how human beings really are, how they really interact with each other. And there's only one way that you can learn that, and that is by being a normal human being, going out there and interacting with other normal human beings and making your way in this world. Mm-hmm. And some of the best people that I know in this area have absolutely no academic education whatsoever. But they're really good at relating to people because they've had to relate to people their whole life. And they've become businessmen and owned restaurants and all the rest of it and can hardly even read.
Yep. I'll tell you what I did when we come back. Guineith Isaacs, live in Australia. So this part that I bought, this hydrant, frost-proof hydrant, it's made by a company, I believe it's made by a company called Merrill, M-E-R-R-I-L-L, manufacturing in Iowa. And on their website, it says proudly made in USA. And they show pictures of their hydrants. But they don't say this particular model is not made in the United States, the one that I have. So if you go to their website, you're going to think that all of their hydrants are made in the United States because it doesn't say otherwise. It says proudly made in USA. Now, I researched this. Made in USA is a label protected by the Federal Trade Commission. And according to their website, all or virtually all means that all significant parts and processing that go into the product must be of U.S. origin. Okay? That is, the product should contain no or negligible foreign content. But the gal that I talked to at Merrill this morning told me that this is made from foreign parts that are machined in the United States. Foreign parts machined in the United States. So that says to me it's not made in USA. Well, anyway.
You know what, Vincent?
Well, hang on.
I would be making a complaint to the FTC.
Well, that's next.
Regarding this company.
So here's what I told the person at Missouri MFA, corporate headquarters. I said, well, how long do you think it's going to take? And he couldn't tell me what he's going to do. He couldn't tell me how he was going to make it right. He wouldn't say anything. He said he doesn't even know, what the item is. I said, well, you guys sold this. I said, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm really frosted. So I told him that if I don't hear from him by 12:01 Central Time today, just after lunch, I'm going to post this on the website. And he told me that I didn't need to be negative about this. So here I am.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got the article already written. I've already posted on the website. The rest of the information is coming later. And at 12:01 atomic time, I've got an atomic clock. So it's not going to be off. It's going to be to the second. Bang. I'm going to hit the send button. I'm frosted. I'm frosted by all these companies, these corporations that are so greedy, these billionaires and millionaires who are running these corporations that want more. And where does that more come from? It comes from stealing from us. It comes from fleecing us. And I'm angry about it. And I'm not going to let it go. I'm not going to let it go. It's a couple $100, less than a couple $100 in parts. But the point is, I expect these parts to be durable. I am not going to buy a refrigerator that I would expect to last 3 or 4 years. I'm not going to buy anything that I expect to last just 3 or 4 years, including but not limited to electronics. I expect a keyboard to last a long time. Yes?
You know what really annoys me? When we complain about their substandard service, their substandard products, their products that hurt us, like a school system that so messes with the minds of our children, for instance, that it takes them sometimes decades to wake up and get over it. You know what? And then when we turn around and complain and spit the dummy, then it's suddenly all our fault.
Oh, that's right.
It's like your hydrant. You know, they make a substandard product, and then, you know, it fails, and then you complain to them, and they say you shouldn't be so negative, that you should sit underneath an olive tree and hum and sing Kumbaya.
Gwyneth, we're going to go get them. We are going to go get these guys. We're going to expose them for what they do, the fleecing of the customers. It's unacceptable. So I'm not going to participate in sending these guys any of my money. I am John Galt. Gwyneth is John Galt. Class, you are John Galt. Withdraw your support from companies that do these things. Seriously. Gwyneth, your newsletter is highlighted at usaprepares.com. Class, if you'd like to sign up for it, I did. Rich Shealy is, and others are as well. It's really quite excellent. You'll be impressed. No kidding. Gwyneth, thanks so much.